Good evening. Our top story tonight, it is the NFL offseason, and unfortunately, that means there's a lot of players that are going to end up being cut by their current team. There are a lot of teams that simply put just don't have money right now. We're looking at the New Orleans Saints. We already know that they have to extend slash restructure Derek Carr. He's sticking around for at least another year, if not two, because the Saints have no money. The Chargers are significantly over the cap. They can get under the cap by moving on from Mike Williams, Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, and Joey Bosa, or even just two of those four players. But those are four of your best players on the team. So there are teams that are desperate right now. They're going to have to do some work to get under the cap and just be able to field a roster. So we're going to be breaking down all of that, all the heartbreaking cut candidates like Nick Chubb on Player Profiler today. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Player Profiler news channel. Player Profiler today is migrating over there, so you're only going to be able to get all of your Player Profiler goodness, all of the news that you crave over on the Player Profiler news channel. So make sure you go and subscribe today, because as of Monday, this show will be on Player Profiler News. We are launching a new YouTube channel. You are going to love it. So make sure you subscribe and you'll get me 3 days a week. You'll get news 7 days a week. We've got Bradley, we've got Toomey, we've got Matt Babbage, we've got Ahan. So many talented people here bringing you all the news that you need, including the players that are unfortunately not going to be on their current roster come 2024. And highlighting that list is unfortunately Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb is arguably the best pure runner in the NFL. You want to say it's Derrick Henry, you want to say it's Nick Chubb, I don't care. Maybe you have someone else after the Nick Chubb injury, after Derrick Henry taking a step back. But for years, this was the case. It was Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, the best pure runners of the football. And so Nick Chubb got a massive contract extension, which he deserved. But now Nick Chubb is going to have a cap number of about $15.8 million. And the Cleveland Browns are currently $19 million over the salary cap. The Browns are negative $19 million. So they've got some work to do. And a large part of that is Deshaun Watson has the largest cap hit in NFL history this season. Deshaun Watson is accounting for, I think, $60 million over the $220 million in salary cap. There's never been a salary cap as hit as big as Deshaun Watson's. And so the Browns are going to have to make decisions elsewhere on their roster. This is what happens when you fully guarantee a contract. That money is on the books every single year. There's no ways to get fancy with it. With the guarantees, you can guarantee more in the future. There's no way to lower that without adding more years to the deal. Void years is really the only way that the Browns can do it. And so they're going to have to make some tough decisions like, do we keep Nick Chubb, who's coming off a horrific injury? And I say horrific based on the video. By all accounts, according to initially it was reported that Nick Chubb only tore his MCL, which was truly unbelievable. And the reason it was unbelievable is because wasn't true. He did also tear his ACL, which was expected. That's what happens when your knee goes sideways completely. But just an ACL and MCL. That's a lot better than it could have been. It looked truly catastrophic. Like potentially every ligament was torn. So Nick Chubb, coming off an ACL, MCL, is going to be questionable to start the year. Nick Chubb is a freak, and we wish him all the best in the recovery. But the Cleveland Browns just got to the playoffs without Nick Chubb. They had a surprisingly competitive offense with 4 different quarterbacks. And now you've got $11.8 million, almost $12 million can be saved if the Browns move on from an aging running back coming off of knee surgery. So, in all likelihood, unfortunately, I think Nick Chubb is going to be cut by the Cleveland Browns. The savings just make too much sense. The knee injury is just too big of a question mark. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Browns keep Nick Chubb on the roster. I hope they run it back with Nick Chubb. I hope he keeps his job, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good. The Browns, $19 million over the cap. They can wipe $12 million of that off the books, only $7 million over their cap. And at that point, you're just playing with restructures. Sure, there's other cuts that you could make, but the Browns in one move can save a lot of money. And Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt and Pierre Strong and whoever else they had mixing in there in the stead of Nick Chubb. Are the Browns just going to go with a committee backfield going forward? It breaks my heart, and this is the problem with running backs in the NFL. They shine so bright and fade so quickly. I really hope this isn't the last we've seen of Nick Chubb. I hope he can continue to be a feature in this offense, but maybe the grass is greener somewhere else, somewhere where he's not playing with Deshaun Watson, where he's not having to carry this full offense. And speaking of Deshaun Watson, by the way, it sounds as though it doesn't sound as though he's the guy. We know he's the guy for the Cleveland Browns. We know he's going to be the starter, so much so that Joe Flacco is going to be on his way out. Joe Flacco not expected to return to the Browns because this is going to be the Deshaun Watson show. And I don't think that offense is going to be particularly successful. So the Browns might need Nick Chubb, but their finances need him off the roster more. Who else is at risk of being cut this offseason? It is always a heartbreaking time. We're going to be looking at some more of these big names that could be moving on and the fantasy implications of those right after this word from the Podfather.
All right, I want to take a moment today to talk to you about data analysis. The data analysis tool, we listen to the users. What do you want? What do you need? And we made it happen. We added popular reports like a fantasy scoring report, air yards report. And if you want to create a new report, but you don't necessarily want to look through every field, we have quick results. Hey, show me the most popular passing data. Show me the most popular rushing data, fantasy data. Done. And the thing just is much faster than it's ever been. And the report builder got a lot easier. I mean, check this out. We break it down into offense, defense. Show me just fantasy data elements. And then when you get results, hey, show me by draft year. Let's take a look at just certain players that played a certain number of snaps or a certain number of games last year. This is the tool that so many of you have been asking for, plus a bunch of dream features that Billy wanted and Cody wanted and I wanted and Dario wanted. So go to the fantasy tools section, click on data analysis, or go to playerprofiler.com/data-analysis. Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
We are back, and we are talking about players that are looking at becoming salary cap casualties this offseason. And we're moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys have two wide receivers that they very well could be moving on from. The Dallas Cowboys, like the Cleveland Browns, about $19 million over the salary cap. So the Cowboys need to save almost $20 million against the salary cap just to qualify, just to be ready for free agency. They've got to save this money ahead of free agency. They have to be able to field a real roster. And to do that, they could be moving on from both of their starting wide receivers outside of CD Lamb. CD Lamb is obviously not going anywhere. CD Lamb probably getting a contract extension this offseason, the first season that he is eligible. No, this is the second season that CD Lamb is eligible for a contract extension. He was drafted the year before Jamar Chase, who is eligible this year. But CD Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, I suppose, all those guys are eligible for contract extensions, but CeeDee Lamb entering the 5th-year option of his contract, whereas his running mates, Brandin Cooks and Michael Gallup, very well could be on their way out. Michael Gallup received a massive contract extension that he just never really lived up to. And part of the reason he hasn't lived up to it yet is the ACL. Michael Gallup tore his ACL and then received the contract. So his first year off of the ACL, kind of rough. Wasn't great. Wasn't fully Michael Gallup. And this year, kind of more of the same. Michael Gallup is the ideal, the platonic ideal of an X receiver in the NFL. Line him up outside, have him go deep, have him run wind sprints, but it just hasn't translated to fantasy success over the past couple years. Ever since we had that 1,000-yard season from all 3 Cowboys wide receivers, it's been downhill for Michael Gallup. And so now his contract, his cap hit is almost $14 million, and they can save $9.5 million by moving on from Michael Gallup. Only $4.4 million would be dead money. So almost $10 million in savings that the Dallas Cowboys desperately need, which is pretty much the same case for Brandin Cooks. Brandin Cooks making less than Michael Gallup. Brandin Cooks' cap hit is $10 million this season. They can save $8 million of that money by moving on from Brandin Cooks. Only $2 million would be considered dead money, would still be on the books. So by moving on from their top 2 wide receivers, the Dallas Cowboys are saving $17.5 million. That's only $1.5 million away from their goal of hitting $0 over the cap. Now, there's other things that they can do, other contracts that they can negotiate with. Dak Prescott is going to receive, well, I shouldn't say is, but Dak Prescott is most likely going to receive a massive contract extension this offseason. And so that will no longer be a question. They'll save a bunch of money that way. And this might not be necessary. Dak Prescott currently the 2nd largest cap hit in NFL history behind Deshaun Watson, because the Cowboys kept restructuring and pushing that salary cap down the line for Dak Prescott. Now it's time to pay the piper. There's 2 ways to get around it, though. You either give Dak Prescott there's only one way around it. You give Dak Prescott a long-term contract extension. You pay the man, and that way it gets spread out over the next couple of years, and you're fine. You don't have to worry about it. The other option is you have to make some tough decisions. You have to make some cuts. You have to move on from Brandin Cooks and Michael Gallup and some other players more than likely. So the Dallas Cowboys, not in a great position, though I do think most of the worries will be assuaged once Dak Prescott signs his long-term extension. That'll save the Cowboys a lot of money, and they'll be in much better shape. Unlike the Los Angeles Chargers, the Chargers are down bad, my friends. The Chargers are hurting. Over $55 million over the salary cap. The Chargers right now have negative $55.4 million in cap space. Now, they've got $32.5 million tied up in Mike Williams. Keenan Allen is slightly higher than that. And Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, they're both cap hits over $30 million. So by cutting 2 of those players, especially Khalil Mack and Keenan Allen, they would be right around the salary cap floor. They'd be right around $0. So even then, they'd still have to make some moves. They'd have to make some restructures, some tough decisions. But 2 of those decisions goes a long way. The problem is if you're Jim Harbaugh, you just came to LA with the hopes of this becoming a contender, this becoming a legit NFL team, this becoming a team that can compete with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just don't see it in 2024 when you're this high over the salary cap. And the only way to really get around it is to move on from some of your better players. Like Khalil Mack is getting cut. I'm sorry. It's just happening. I've seen people float trades for Khalil Mack. Could go to the Lions for a 4th-round pick. Khalil Mack's cap hit is just so exorbitant that is any team giving up $30 million for a 1-year rental because Khalil Mack has flirted with retirement in the past? Unlikely. And yeah, you could save more money by moving on from Keenan Allen than Mike Williams, but Keenan Allen a lot more productive than Mike Williams. Who would you rather have on your roster? Mike Williams or Keenan Allen? If all things are equal, it's obviously Keenan Allen. But even when it's not quite equal, but close enough, I'm still taking Keenan Allen. Mike Williams coming off an ACL tear. This is just the Michael Gallup situation happening later. Mike Williams tears his ACL early in the season, so he might be back for week 1. He might be able to avoid the PUP. We'll see. Don't know if I fully believe it yet, but there's a chance that Mike Williams avoids the PUP list, is able to start week 1. But I don't think it's going to be for the Chargers. $20 million alone. The savings for Mike Williams. I don't think I'd pay Mike Williams $20 million. I really don't. And I get he's a $32.5 million salary cap player this year. I just don't think it's worth it. Mike Williams has always been a solid but not spectacular wide receiver, capable of making some incredible plays and capable of not making a handful of other plays. Mike Williams, the harder the catch is to make, it seems the more likely Mike Williams is to make it. And his play style, his willingness to just throw his body in the air and hope he lands softly, that contributes to some of these injuries. Now, obviously, the ACL, it's a knee injury, but he's had back injuries. He's had all sorts of injuries. Unfortunately, it looks like Mike Williams' time with the Los Angeles Chargers has come to an end. Mike Williams is going to be on a new team in 2024. Same with Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Robert Woods. Both are in a different bucket than these other players, because the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Browns, they all need money. They all must make some moves to free up some money. They have none. They're broke boys. They can't afford it. And so they've got to make some decisions. Whereas the Texans and the Chiefs, that's not the case. Surprisingly for the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl and already have $22 million in cap space. And they can still do plenty with Patrick Mahomes' contract as well, whether he gets an extension, whether they renegotiate it. Probably going to be an extension, because then you could have more years to play with the money as well for Patrick Mahomes. But the Chiefs have a lot of money, and they can quite easily save even more. So while Marquez Valdes-Scantling is making $14 million, or at least his cap hit is set to be $14 million this year, and they can save $12 million, is it worth it to move on from a wide receiver? I can't even say one of your better wide receivers, just a wide receiver. Is it worth moving on from Marquez Valdes-Scantling, giving the way the rest of the roster looks, to save $12 million? Well, if you can get a Mike Williams, a Michael Gallup, a Michael Thomas, a Brandin Cooks, if you can get any of those guys, that's an upgrade, especially if it's for the same money. Brandin Cooks this year, he is $10 million against the cap. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is $14 million. Michael Gallup, about $14 million against the cap. MVS, $14 million against the cap. So really, yeah, I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to be gone. He has not lived up to the contract. He's been a playoff hero at times, don't get me wrong. But more than likely, MVS is going to be looking for work, looking for a new team to sign with. And the Chiefs are going to bring in an upgrade at wide receiver, whether it's those guys I've mentioned, whether they go in on Mike Evans, whether they go in on any of these big name wide receivers. Chiefs, more than likely, moving on from MVS. Rashee Rice is going to have a new running mate. And same thing for the Houston Texans, Robert Woods. Now, the Houston Texans have $57 million in cap space already. So the Texans aren't hurting for money. They don't need money, but Robert Woods was a full-time player last year. Even through some injuries, he ran a route on about 70% of CJ Stroud's dropbacks and still just wasn't productive, wasn't efficient, wasn't drawing targets. Robert Woods was kind of just out there doing nothing. And when he's making almost $10 million, $9.8 million cap hit this season, they can save $5 million by moving on from Robert Woods. 4.8 of that is going to be dead money. And honestly, it kind of makes sense. I think Noah Brown is back, but even if he's not, you've got Tank Dell in the slot. You've got Nico Collins outside. You just need one more starting wide receiver. You're not sending Tank Dell to the bench. You're not sending Nico Collins to the bench. So it'd be Noah Brown versus Robert Woods. Give me Noah Brown at this point in their respective careers, but you could even upgrade on Noah Brown too. You could draft a wide receiver. You could sign someone in free agency. So while the Texans do have a lot of money, while they don't need to make this move to move on from Robert Woods, I think they're gonna make a change, and they're going to upgrade their receiving core again. and they're going to run it back with Dalton Schultz probably re-signing, Tank Dell, who CJ Stroud loves, and Nico Collins. This is going to be a scary offense in 2024. But some teams have already started making these moves. Some teams have already started making cuts, including the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears save almost $22 million by cutting 2 starters. They cut their center, who was formerly their left guard. I think he played right guard at some point in his career too, Cody Whitehair, has been moving all along the offensive line for the Chicago Bears. Played center this past season. And the injuries have started catching up to him at this point in his career. The Bears are looking for a youth movement, but Cody Whitehair was a cornerstone of the Bears for a bunch of years, from culture to just having a solid presence on the offensive line. Cody Whitehair, solid NFL career. He's going to be looking for work, as is Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson, cut by the Chicago Bears, starting safety for a bunch of years, former Alabama Crimson Tide. Eddie Jackson going to be looking for work as well. So that's $21.5 million that the Chicago Bears have saved with just those 2 moves. They now have $67 million in cap space. They're top 4 in money to spend in 2024. The Bears already had a lot of money, have even more money now. The Bears are going to be spending to load up the roster around Caleb Williams, building that offensive line, building the defense, getting weapons for Caleb Williams all need to be priorities for the Chicago Bears, because it's what's going to happen. They're not sticking with Justin Fields. They're drafting Caleb Williams. I'm so sick of the discourse already. I'm done. I'm going to have to keep talking about it. I can't say I'm done talking about it because I'm the news guy. When news comes in, I tell you, but I'm so sick of all the Caleb Williams news. I want that story to just go to sleep until draft night, and then we can see from there, because at this point, not much is going to change in terms of what the media says, the fantasy football experts takes. Not much is going to change. I'm just not ready to keep talking about it for months on end. Other news and notes around the NFL: L'Jarius Sneed, the Pro Bowl corner for the Kansas City Chiefs, has a message for Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs. Sneed, the top free agent cornerback, either L'Jarius Sneed or Jalen Johnson from the Chicago Bears. Those are the top 2 cornerbacks. But Sneed says, pay me, pay me, pay me. L'Jarius Sneed going to be looking to cash in after a strong season with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs have a decision to make. They do have a lot of money, so maybe they can bring back both. But Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, I thought previously that Chris Jones was going to end up walking. He clearly isn't walking after his performance at the Super Bowl parade. So is L'Jarius Sneed going to be back? Is he going to get the money that he's looking for? Stay tuned. This is why you subscribe to Player Profiler today. Make sure you subscribe to the Player Profiler news channel as well. If you want to keep saying my beautiful face 3 times a week, we're going to be over on that channel, the flagship show of Player Profiler News. Speaking of paydays, the Lions are looking to give Amon-Ra St. Brown a massive payday. They're working on a contract extension worth $25 million per year. Congrats to Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and all-pro this past season alongside Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. Good for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Absolutely love to see it. Congratulations to him. That is going to be a big, big contract. Other players looking for money: Joe Flacco, we mentioned, moving on from the Cleveland Browns, but he's going to be looking for not necessarily a big payday, but he's going to be looking for a place that he can compete to be the starter. Could it be the Falcons? The Falcons are looking for a quarterback. QB is priority number 1 for the Atlanta Falcons this offseason. All options are on the table for who that quarterback is going to be. Remains to be seen, but the Atlanta Falcons, we know, looking for a new QB. Not going to be A.J. McCarron, though. A.J. McCarron, of course, it's not going to be A.J. McCarron. But we talked about this a couple days ago. A.J. McCarron released by the Cincinnati Bengals. The reason he was released is because he asked, hey, I did you the favor. I came back during the regular season to be a backup, to help move this along with Jake Browning at quarterback. But guys, I want to go back to it used to be the XFL when A.J. McCarron played in it. Now it's the UFL. I want to go back. I want to be a starting quarterback still. I don't care if it's in the UFL, XFL, USFL, whatever. A.J. McCarron still wants to play some football, so he is going back to the St. Louis Battlehawks in the UFL this season, going to be a starting quarterback for one more season. Speaking of being a quarterback for one more season, Geno Smith is going to be back with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, there was never really a question about this. There were some whispers or more people just wondering, hey, are the Seahawks going to bring Geno back? Should they move on from Geno? Should they draft a quarterback? Well, it is official today, or official yesterday, actually. $12.7 million guaranteed comes today. So yesterday, the announcement was made that the Seahawks are going to keep Geno Smith. Today, that $12.7 million becomes guaranteed. Previously, it was only guaranteed for injury. Now, Geno Smith locked in to making that extra $12.7 million, making about $40 million a year. And that's just the going rate at quarterback. There's going to be a bunch of contracts signed. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, going to sign new contracts. Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, likely going to sign new contracts. And so the Seahawks are saying, hey, we don't have a plan in place for a quarterback. And if we don't bring back Geno Smith, if we cut Geno Smith, everyone's going to know we're drafting a quarterback. And that really takes away a lot of our leverage. So instead, they bring Geno Smith back for at least one more season. It's a 3-year deal. He's going to be playing at least 2 years of the 3-year deal. And that doesn't stop the Seahawks from drafting a quarterback. Doesn't stop the Seahawks from trying to develop someone to replace Geno Smith, which is the right decision. And we talk all the time, bridge quarterbacks. Is it really a good strategy? Or are you just bridging to nothing? Are you just making it harder for you to win or to get a real QB of the future? For the Seahawks, a little bit different. They're trying to install a new organization, install a culture. That's easier to do with someone that's been there before. And it's easier to do that when you are not just losing constantly, which is what probably would happen if the Seahawks had to move on from Geno Smith and go to a new quarterback. So Geno going to be back for at least one more season. But who could replace Geno Smith? Who could be the quarterback to step in once Geno Smith and once the Seahawks are ready to move on? Could it be J.J. McCarthy? The J.J. McCarthy drumbeat continues to roll on and on and on. Every day, we're hearing more and more about how special J.J. McCarthy is, how he's going to be the next guy, how he could be the 101, he could be QB1. And now, the most recent report on J.J. McCarthy is that if Michigan threw the ball, then J.J. McCarthy would just be Joe Burrow. And that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. If J.J. McCarthy was Joe Burrow, they would have thrown the ball. But J.J. McCarthy is not Joe Burrow, so they didn't throw the ball. I still believe J.J. McCarthy's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be drafted, probably top 15 at worst. But come on. We got to stop with these ridiculous comparisons. It's not just at the quarterback position. I've seen people saying that Malik Neighbors is going to be a better Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, who's probably going to finish top 25 all time in receiving yards. So just stop with the hyperbolic comparisons, the better than Stephon Diggs, the better than Randy Moss, the new Calvin Johnson, all those comparisons, or comparing J.J. McCarthy to Joe Burrow. Just don't do it. Just stop. Use your head and don't do it.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.